Welcome into the Bear Squad Show. I am Joe George, postgame host. Ryan Poles has bolstered the defense and the offensive line.
I'm Lauren Cox from Locked On Bears. I think Coby Bryant at safety is a great fit in this Bears defense. Really, that's the splash move of free agency for Ryan Poles.
Hey guys, Taylor Dahl here of Making Monsters. And as Tremaine Edmonds head out the door, the Bears add a linebacker, Devin Busch, for 3-year, $30 million. Let's chat about that a little bit.
Bear down, Chicago. It's the Bears Squad. Everything Chicago Bears, every week. Covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from the Windy City. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. From Soldier Field to the next great chapter, the Bears Squad Show starts now.
Welcome into the Bear Squad Show here on the Locked On Bears YouTube channel and audio platforms. Joe George, Lauren Cox, and Taylor Dahl here with you for the next hour as we discuss all the moves the Bears made today. Because, well, we've kind of talked about how maybe it's a quiet free agency. It was not that today. There was a lot of moves made. There was a trade made before today. Braxton Jones, just recently before we went live, is coming back to the Chicago Bears. They're not getting any comp picks. That came out today from the NFL. We'll discuss that. And also just what's next for the Chicago Bears as tampering period is officially open and well alive in the NFL. So many moves today. I can't even imagine, Lauren, how many moves you guys had to talk about on the Locked On NFL show today. But there's a lot to get to. And we'll start with kind of the headliner of this one. Really, there's two of them. But we'll start with Coby Bryant. If you have no safeties on your roster, and really the first move that Ryan Poles makes for Dennis Allen and this defense is adding Coby Bryant from the Seattle Seahawks. So, Lauren, we'll just start there. Your thoughts on the move as this defense starts to get reshaped?
Yeah, I mean, it felt like there was always going to be at least one outside safety brought in, and this might actually mean two outside safeties brought in. But, like, this was Dennis Allen's opportunity to get a guy that he feels like is the scheme fit he wanted. He inherited Byard and Brisker were both Eberflus safeties that obviously Byard had a great season. It wasn't like they were both terrible, ruining Ed Allen's defense, but now he's got an opportunity to get like his guys in here. And Bryant, to me, is super instinctual and reactive, and a real big key to what made the Seahawks defense so good last season is like because of how smart he is. Like, he didn't run the fastest 40-yard dash or whatever, but like he reads quarterbacks so well that he can be a step ahead, and it helped them disguise coverages where like they could just wait to the last possible second to change at the last minute. And I think Dennis Allen's going to be able to do a lot of that different stuff, but also he's a guy who's played slot early in his career, now is more of a free safety. I think they can move him around a little bit. Like I suspect he's a Kevin Byard replacement, but it wouldn't stun me if they said, no, he's got the skill set to do all sorts of things, and we could still pair him with a Byard or with another true free safety type. Like, I don't think they're feeling too locked in yet, but I do suspect more financially they might not want to pay. If Byard's still got a big market, I don't think they're going to pay up. I think Ryan Poles is going to be a little bit more conservative with the second safety spot, wait things out and see whose price tag comes down a little bit, and then pull a trigger.
Yeah, I love this. I mean, I think that a few weeks ago when we were going over some of the names we like in free agency, Coby was the first name on my list, but I was like, I don't know if the Bears are going to spend what they would need to get Coby. So I was pumped when I saw this, when this popped up. To your point, Lauren, I think that the scheme fits perfect. I think that he's one of those safeties you see a lot in like sub packages, which you can see a lot. I can just picture him and Kyler on the field together and the damage they can cause there. He's really good against everything. When you talk about the run, you haven't seen him as much. I want to say his first year, he had a couple sacks, and since then, I don't think he's had any. But I could see Dennis Allen even using him in that aspect a little bit more when we see some blitzes and stuff like that, because we were seeing some of that a little bit with Jaquan Brisker last year. But I mean, he gets picks, he forces fumbles, he can cover, he can stop the run, he can do everything you want a safety to do. And like you said, I don't think he's like the flashiest, fastest, but he is just really solid, doesn't make a lot of mistakes. And that's what you can ask for a safety who's coming in to fill two roles that, we're all kind of looking at as having really good seasons this last year.
And you nailed that. He did have 2 sacks his first season, but like this past year in Seattle, he rushed the passer 7 times, and that includes through the Super Bowl and the playoffs. He did not blitz a single time in the postseason. It was 7 times across the regular season. So they didn't ask him to do a lot of that last year, but it's something he hasn't been able to do well before.
I think this was a really good start for the Bears in free agency. I'm with you guys. I was excited when I saw this sign. Look, you go into an offseason with no safeties on your roster, trying to figure out just what that room is going to look like. And Cam Curl was one of the guys at the top of my list, and he re-signed with the Rams. It's like, okay, well, who's the next guy? And Coby Bryant did seem like the the next piece, to get for the Bears. But to your point, Taylor, was, are they going to invest that much financially in the safety position? Like, where is the money going to go as you look at this offseason? And so I think this was a great move just to start it off. And now you figure out, Lauren, as you said, who's the next safety? Is it Byard? Is it, I don't know. I don't think him and Byard really work together as a duo, but like maybe Dennis Allen views that differently. So it does feel like that chapter is closed for the Bears unless the Byard market really slips and maybe he's a veteran and you've got this nice rotation and you can be really creative with how you do things on defense. But who's the next guy or whatever you got, Lauren?
Well, I was going to say the other thing I really like about Coby Bryant is like contract details are already out. His year one salary cap hit is $6 million, just under $6 million. He's going to cost the Bears this year. Obviously, it jumps up to 17 in each of the next 2 seasons, and the guaranteed money has him. You're locked in for these first 2 years for sure. You can get out of it before year 3, but like I think it's really effective salary cap maneuvering for Ryan Poles here to say, listen, this year's salary is a little tight, but there's a lot more cap space in the next couple seasons. This year you're paying DJ Moore $12 million in dead cap money, Drew Dahlman $4 million. You'll get the Dahlman money back next year, but you don't have it this year. And Tremaine Edmonds has some dead money, so to keep the cost down right away, but then to push it in the future, but not like too much in the future where you're really screwed. Like even $17 million next year is not like whoa, crazy safety money. Like it's expensive, but like it's still affordable expensive. So I think it's kind of a win-win there where Coby gets good money, but the Bears don't have to pay it all up front and can kind of move that around for their future flexibility or more their present flexibility while maintaining some future flexibility too.
Yeah. And then you mentioned Edmonds. We can just kind of transition right into Devin Busch, which like this is where offseason projections, I think, make projecting what a team can do are really challenging. I saw a bunch of people quote tweeting articles and screenshotting articles where it was Devin Busch expected AAV $20 million. He came in for half that. Yeah. So this is another move that, I was listening to a Steelers fan talk about it. It's like he started off slow in Pittsburgh, but then rejuvenates his career in Cleveland, big time speed that you add to this defense, really good numbers last year. This is another one where I'm like, all right, I like this signing too. Like as you start to rebuild the defense, Busch and Bryant are really good building blocks for what you're hoping the Bears can be next year. Taylor, I'll let you start with this one, just your thoughts on the signing and what that means for the linebacker room.
Yeah, I mean, I think especially if you're getting that trajectory of you're getting the beginning of this guy going upwards, and I feel like that seems like the sense of what you're getting from Busch. And you go back, and I think if you're just looking, and this is just box scores, but box score wise, him and Tremaine were pretty similar when it comes to almost everything, when it comes to tackles for loss, even interceptions. I think he had 3 picks this year. He had a couple sacks in there, 2.5, I believe it was. So when you go through and you just compare the straight numbers, now there's other things that you're calculating into that when it comes to the run, when it comes to, we've mentioned other things where it's been a situation we've seen with Tremaine where quarterbacks will avoid throwing at Tremaine. I don't know how much this last year that factored in as much. I think people were risking a little bit more and they were taking advantage of that in certain situations when it comes to Edmonds. But when you're just looking straight on paper, you're looking at almost an identical player, at least of what they were able to do in this last season. And so because of that, it reminded me a little bit in the sense of, and this is everyone loves Roquan Smith, so that's going to be a little harder of a conversation to have. But Ryan Poles went in and he went and gets TJ Edwards and Tremaine Edmonds. Their contracts equaled what Roquan's was by themselves. And then now today we saw DeMarco Jackson and Busch, and their contracts equals what Tremaine Edmonds got in his own. So I think that the value Ryan Poles sees, and we talked about it a ton too, the development we saw of DeMarco Jackson this year and the way that he was able to stand out. Now, if you could do that with Devin Busch coming off the season that he had, I think you're going to be looking at a really good player. And are you looking at one of those top 5 linebackers? I don't know, but I think you're looking at a room that could be pretty solid with Edwards and DeMarco Jackson and now Busch added into that.
When the Devin Busch news first came out, I found myself a little bit hesitant and not going to say concerned, but like I remember Devin Busch with the Steelers being someone who was super athletic, but like instincts were quite all there and certainly like would not take on blocks and would just kind of try and run around them and be a liability in some areas. And then he tore his ACL and then there was some struggles after that. And I was like, my gut reaction initially was like, guy who struggled when he was younger and just had his really good season and now cashes in. Like, it kind of sounds like Tremaine Edmonds. You know what I mean? So I was like, are we just going down the same path again and going through the thing. But I think when I look at Devin, when I've had a little bit of time to watch Devin Busch on tape, like there's some real improvement there, right? It wasn't just like, things just kind of clicked all of a sudden, but like he is more physical taking on blocks, and he is more instinctive, especially in the running game there, and still has the speed. He was like Edmonds, a younger player coming out of college, so he maybe needed a little bit more time to kind of develop and go on this career arc. So I've come a full circle on from that initial gut reaction to like, no, I still have some, a little bit of cautious, like skepticism to it, but I still think for the price, at only $10 million, like you got rid of Edmonds and signed Busch and DeMarco Jackson for less than you were paying Edmonds. Like even if Busch isn't as great as he was in Cleveland this past season, I think this is still a net positive for the Bears at linebacker.
Yeah, so Devin Busch gets 3 years, $30 million, 21 of it guaranteed. And interesting enough, then Tremaine Edmonds goes and signs with the Giants, and he gets 3 years, $36 million for 23.7 guaranteed. So even the guy that you let walk goes out and gets a bigger contract. So you save the money, get 2 guys for the price of 1, and then Edmonds and go gets a bigger deal from the Giants than you paid Devin Busch, which is really interesting because it does feel like, if things don't go well for Busch, people will be watching the Giants when they can and seeing the impact that Edmonds will. Like this does feel like a critical Ryan Poles moment in just terms of how fans will view him. But I think this is a good signing on paper. And I just, like, it's free agency. You don't win Super Bowls in free agency. But I do feel like the Bears defense is on a better path today than it was in the offseason or at the end of the regular season. And I just, and they were guys I honestly, Lauren, just was not expecting the Bears to actually go out and get.
Yeah, I mean, Ryan Poles said they wanted to add more speed on defense. I mean, that's Devin Busch to a T. Mm-hmm. And I think to some extent that's Coby Bryant. Like Bryant's, again, not like the world's fastest safety, but compared to an aging Kevin Byard, I think he's got a little bit more juice to that on that regard. And then we'll talk about the defensive tackle coming in. Like he also has some good energy and some good speed. Neville Gallimore, some just good motor, good energy type of guy. So like, I think they're hitting that goal early on here with veteran players that haven't been the number one most expensive guys at their position, but can be savvy, flexible deals. Like I think that fits the bill nicely for Ryan Poles. You don't feel like, oh my God, you're screwed by a Dio Dingbo, Grady Jarrett style deal where it's just humongous money owed that even if the year goes bad, you're going to be stuck with it for a year. Like these are flexible enough that I think you're feeling all right about your long-term flexibility.
Yeah. Dio did tweet today. He's ready. I can't remember the exact tweet, but
I believe that was a fake account. That it was
it? Okay.
Not actually.
I was like, that's very interesting to tweet at this moment. I will say I saw something earlier when it was Nick Whalen posted it, and it was like the linebacker rating allowed, passer rating allowed, and minimum 140 coverages. And the first and second, number 1 was DeMarco Jackson this year, and Devin Busch was second. So, I mean, obviously that's not all of the linebackers' job, but it is becoming a really important aspect for linebackers to be able to drop back in coverage and do some of those things there. So you have at least those 2 things that you're looking at, which maybe have been some of the struggles in the last couple of years with the linebacker group.
And then, Lauren, your thoughts on the DeMarco Jackson deal? I mean, it's 2 years, 7.5 guaranteed, up to or 7.5 minimum, up to 10.5 potentially in the contract with all the, things that can escalate it. But that move to me also feels like a good one, where I was very pro bringing him back and fits into a price tag that I thought maybe more expensive when he hit free agency, but that's another solid move for the Bears in free agency.
Yeah, the $3 million cap hit this year, about 4.5 next year. This could legitimately be the best move overall that they made this offseason, just in terms of value. Like, if Coby Bryant is probably the one that could hit and really be the home run, but like, just in terms of like the kind of like important team building blocks that you need to kind of keep a roster together with just good, reliable players who he'll be a good special teams player if he's not in the starting lineup. And if he quickly finds his way in the starting lineup, then you're getting super great value for a cheap linebacker. So yeah, to get that deal done quickly before some of the other linebacker contracts started inflating more and more, I thought that was maybe my all around favorite move so far.
And I think the importance too, that's maybe undervalued sometimes when it comes to free agency and, paying your guys, just having that we back up, you play well, we'll pay you. And I feel like there was a sense in Chicago for a long time that just didn't happen. It was, Ryan Pace wasn't the one to give out second contracts to people. The Bears were at the bottom of that for a long time. And I think they're still towards the bottom, but we've seen more and more of those second contracts since Ryan Poles has gotten to Chicago. So I do think that's important too, because people are more open to coming and playing for your organization. If they're like, if I can come there, play, earn a next contract. I actually feel like I'm going somewhere that will pay me. And, I think that's important too. And you're kind of seeing a little bit of that recently with Ryan Poles in general, but I think the DeMarco Jackson's one of those too.
All right, let's take our first break here. Let's continue discussing all the moves the Bears make because there's still a bunch more to get through on the day. We'll do that next year on the Bears Squad Show. Today's episode of the Bears Squad Show is brought to you by Gametime. We live in a world where we can stream anything, order food in minutes, and carry supercomputers in our pockets. And somehow, buying tickets to a live game still feels complicated. Hidden fees, jumping prices, endless steps. There has to be a better way. And that's why I use the Gametime app. It gives fans the advantage and makes getting tickets simple, whether it's NFL games, concerts, comedy, or whatever you're into. I used Gametime the other day because I want to go check out the WBC. Living here in Houston, watched Team USA take on Great Britain, PCA, and Breggy out there. So had to get it while I could, and it was awesome. There was great deals all over it and big-time savings using the Gametime app. 2 taps, and you can have great seats locked in, fast, easy, done. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Gametime today. All right, Taylor, we'll start with this one. Right before the show started, Braxton Jones back with the Chicago Bears. A $5 million deal can be worth up to $10 million, as reported by Jordan Schultz. But, we had a lot of questions about what the left tackle situation was going to look like. And Braxton Jones, it seems, will at least factor in somehow next year.
Yeah, I feel like I'm a little shocked, but at the same time, maybe not. I think this conversation would look very differently if we weren't coming off a season or off an injury with Ozzie. I think this would look drastically different. But I do think that bringing back somebody who is now comfortable, you have some familiarity in this offense. You have familiarity, obviously, in front of Caleb Williams and the guys around you. And I do think that's so important when it comes to offensive lines. So keeping guys who have that have played together, I feel like isn't a bad thing. And yes, we know that Braxton Jones has struggled with certain things. The bull rush is something that he just really hasn't been able to control since he's came to the NFL. But I do think that when you're talking about, you went from having a top 3 offensive line to losing 2 massive pieces in that, Ozzie to an injury, and then obviously Drew Dahlman retiring. So you do have to pivot a little bit. And I think that the $5 million and then $5 million incentives, I think honestly is not a bad way to go. Prove yourself a little bit. And the incentives are something that I think personally a lot more contracts should involve, because I do feel like if you have those incentives in there, then maybe it will give people reason to, do work a little harder, practice a little harder, whatever the case may be. Not saying Braxton wasn't a hard practicer, but I think the value when it comes to that isn't bad. I think bringing back somebody who's familiar with everything right now at left tackle when things are so up in the air, it's fine. It's not something that I'm like celebrating, but it's not something where I think Ryan Poles is making a big mistake.
Yeah, I think the thing that stood out to me about that is it says something good about Ben Johnson and offensive line coach Dan Rouchard, that a player like Braxton Jones can go through a season the way it did. And a lot of times, whether it's sour grapes or it's just sort of like everyone kind of mutually agrees, like, hey, this didn't really end the way you wanted it to, didn't really end the way we wanted it to. So we're just going to kind of part ways and let go. Like he was benched. I mean, he was hurt and then he was benched and then he came back off of injured reserve and they needed a left tackle in the postseason and they said, no, we don't want you. All they did all season was tell Braxton Jones, no, we don't want you. And so, I mean, not verbally, but just with their actions. And so for them to be able to smooth this over a little bit and kind of convince him to say, hey, no, we still want you here and you should still want to be here too. I mean, maybe the Bears are offering more money than anybody else because they know him better than anyone else and are more willing to pay him. Like that could always be the great equalizer here. But I think I would bet there have been times when a player could get just as much money coming back, but because it ended as poorly as it did with Braxton Jones, that they just would rather go somewhere else and want to change the scenery, even on a 1-year deal. So I think it says something good about Ben Johnson, the coaching staff, the way they communicate and the culture that they're building, that he would even want to come back, given that it was the opposite of what he was hoping his contract year would end up like.
Yeah, and I think for the long term, and look, a lot of Bears fans were hoping for Taylor Decker. Obviously it was a big one being released by the Lions as an option for it. But I think you go into the season now, you have Braxton Jones, you have Theo Benedict, you have kind of a competition. I think also the fact that you didn't go out and invest financially at this moment or wait till the draft also says long-term what they think of Ozzie. That Ozzie still is the long-term left tackle. And you go into this season, and if it has to be just Braxton or Theo for the entire year and Ozzie's a piece for 27, then that's the case. Or Ozzie can come back healthy at some point this season if that's still on the table. So I don't think this is Braxton Jones is your starting left tackle, but there's a competition at least. And now we know into the offseason what one of the major talking points for the Bears is going to be, Lauren, and that's this competition now at left tackle.
Yeah, that's what I was going to turn this question back on you guys. Like, assuming this is the plan, right? I mean, maybe they'll draft. I mean, I don't think they're going to draft a left tackle early, so they could draft a late round tackle. But the plan is going to be Braxton Jones, Theo Benedict, and I guess Karan Amagaji all competing. What's your confidence level in just the left tackle position from week 1 to week 18 or week 18, like being steady? I mean, I guess it wasn't even steady this year because they started with Braxton Jones, then went to Theo, and then went to Ozzie. But like, I don't know, like I don't find myself concerned, and I feel like or as concerned as I thought I would be, because I feel like Theo is going to develop, but also like we haven't seen Theo or Braxton Jones play consistent starting caliber left tackle play since at least last year or 2 years ago for Braxton Jones. So I don't know why I feel like I find myself feeling more okay, but maybe that's just trusting the offensive line coach too much at this point. I don't know. What's your guys' confidence level in them saying this is the plan at left tackle for Caleb Williams is pivotal 2026 when everyone's trying to, this is going to be a big year for winning a lot more games and trying to take that next step. Is left tackle going to hold them back?
Yeah, it's crazy because I'm with you in the sense of like, I feel like I should be panicking and I'm not. Like, I feel like I should be like, oh no, like we're going into something that I'm not super confident in at left tackle. But I also think that when we go back to last year, to your point, I mean, there's 3 different left tackles playing, and you're talking about an offensive line that was towards the top of the league. So I feel like Ben Johnson's scheme, and when you talk about Rochar and what he's able to do with the linemen and how much we see those extra, the tight ends and the chips and all of those things that they're able to do when someone is struggling. Then, I mean, because there were moments with Ozzie too, even when he was playing, like he'd have really good moments. And then there were moments where you could see that, the rookie side kind of shining, and they were able to get over those. I think a big part of that is you have one of the best players in the entire league next to you. So that helps. And maybe that's a big part of it. I feel like when you have somebody like a Joe Thuney right next to you, you feel like a little bit of the pressure is off that left tackle. I mean, looking today about the contract Linderbaum guy, it's kind of cool to watch in the sense of like, we've just given so much praise to like left tackle for so long. It was like, oh, left tackle should be the highest paid. And like, they're the most important on the offensive line. And then it kind of started being like, okay, well, right tackle is pretty important too, because now you've got edge rushers on both sides coming off, these fast, speedy edge rushers that can get to the quarterback from both ways. And then now it's kind of being like, okay, well, now you have these super athletic, fast interior defensive linemen, and you've got to be able to protect the quarterback from the inside too, and they're just as important. So I do think and we've got to have the center conversation now. That's going to be the big thing. I think for me, I'm almost more concerned about that than left tackle, just because of that connection that Caleb and Drew had so quickly. And we saw the centers with bad snaps and the pressures up the middle with Caleb last year. And so that I think I'm more worried about than a left tackle competition between those 3 guys, honestly.
Yeah, I'll say I'm with you guys. I think I should feel more concerned. But Ben Johnson in year 1 has given such a benefit of the doubt of what this is going to look like offensively for the Bears for the foreseeable future, that if he says, I'm okay with this, I'm okay with bringing in Braxton Jones and having this competition at left tackle, that I also feel comfortable with it. And maybe that's too much grace to give to a first-year coach, and it might bite us all by even thinking that, but that's just kind of where I'm at right now. Is if they think this is okay, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. And because honestly, even with the 25th pick, if you were to draft a left tackle there, I'm not sure it really is that different in year 1 in terms of what you're going to get. Like, if there are still long-term concerns, yeah, I think there are. But for this year, I think you can get by until you can really get Ozzie back into the fold and see what it looks like. Let's have that center conversation. So before all this started, and the Linderbaum contract, I think, should ease Bears fans a little bit, because they didn't have $60 million guaranteed to throw his way like the Raiders gave him today, which is a wild contract There's a $9 million discrepancy now between him and Creed Humphreys as the two highest paid centers in the NFL. But the Bears trade a 5th-round pick to the Patriots for Garrett Bradbury, gave up no sacks last year. I've seen some Patriots fans who were kind of happy he's gone. Some were not as happy he's gone. It seems like kind of a mixed bag. So, Lauren, now that free agency is kind of underway, how do you feel about that trade and what it does for the center position for the Bears?
Yeah, I would imagine Ryan Poles had some inkling that this, maybe not this Linderbaum deal was coming, but that the market was going to look this way. And he's, probably from conversation at the combine, he goes, "Oh crap, I'm not messing with this free agent center stuff anymore. Like, this market just got reset." I mean, like maybe if they were going to kick the tires on Biotish like before free agency opened, and then it's kind of conflicting reporting now whether they did or did not. But like, yeah, I don't love Bradbury, but I do love the idea of getting your center for $5.7 million and feeling like he will hold the position down. Like, he's definitely a better run blocker than pass blocker, but he can still handle all the protections up front. And I feel like if there's a spot on my offensive line where pass protection might be able to be the weakest, it's center, because he's rarely going to have one-on-one blocks, like unless it's a 5-man rush. But like, if it's a 4-man rush, your center's almost never truly one-on-one there. There's a guard on either side that's going to help him. So like, I can get by with this, knowing that the plan should be to draft a center, and that'll either be an open competition or that player is going to be your new center in 2027. But like, I think we're going to be frustrated at times this season with Bradbury, but like, I don't think it's going to be debilitating to the Bears offensive line. And I didn't like a lot of their other options when it came to like free agency and something that was going to be affordable and any better than this. Like, when McGovern came off the board, Biotish was an option, but hasn't been that great lately. It was going to be a little bit rough for the Bears there. So I'm okay with this as the best of a tough situation.
Yeah, I think part of the problem that may cause a little bit of worry and panic is just the way that we saw Drake May get absolutely rocked the whole postseason behind his line. And like, granted, I saw multiple people, including Nicholas Moriano, go through and be like, I went back and watched the Super Bowl, and it wasn't Bradbury who was allowing a lot of those sacks. And we know Will Campbell was a lot of those, but he went through and rewatched that whole game, and he was like, there's no moment where I thought that he was really a liability in that game. So it does comfort you in some level, but I do think that when you go through, I would expect a center in the draft, and then obviously Luke Newman last year. So you go with those three, and you kind of figure out what you have in that sense, and you don't feel like you're having to massively pay a center. And you move forward with hopefully a young guy, or Bradbury works out. I mean, how fantastic if you go through and you get a guy that plays really well in front of Caleb. And so I do think that in the sense of being able to be kind of familiar with the guy, a quarterback who will move around a little bit and use his legs, you have that advantage too. And so like I said, I'm a little concerned just more into the sense of, how important that connection is between center and quarterback. And so how fast do they develop that, and how much do you get that going? I know Joe Dahlman and Caleb got that very quickly, but it's not as easy to do for every center. So it'll be interesting to see that, but it does feel like Brian Poles was, to your point, Lauren, like looking at probably some of the numbers he was hearing, it was like, you can't, you don't have the money to do that. So you have to find a way to protect your quarterback as much as possible. And I heard that Drew had told them that Monday, he was going to be retiring. So they had a few days before everything kind of hit the wall to think about what they were going to do. And so we'll see. I mean, he was able to fix the offensive line last year. Granted, he put a lot of money, but people had questions about Jonah Jackson. That was one of the contracts that Ryan Poles, when Jonah Jackson got here last year, everyone was super critical of that. And it ended up working with Roshar and Ben Johnson and the way that offense runs. So I think you just kind of have to lean into that and trust those guys. And that's where I am right now, but we'll see how that goes once camp starts.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I have any players particularly in mind right now, but with that additional second-round pick that the Bears have, or maybe it's their third-round pick that they have, is drafting a center for the long-term future. And if that player were to come in and in camp, outplay Bradbury and just end up being your starting center, like I would be okay with that too. I do think center now rises up your need a little bit in the draft and just having a longer-term plan, but I don't want the Bears also to draft based on need. It's just, if a center is best player available on their board in the second round or third round, I definitely think that's an area where you can address that and through the draft too, and have a current and a long-term plan working in conjunctions. And if the younger player ends up beating out Bradbury, then he beats him out, and you gave up a 5th-round pick and you lose a couple $1 million, and it is what it is at that point.
And
sorry, go ahead.
at that point, he's a valuable backup too. Like you're going to backup center, like and especially with some versatility potentially to move around a little bit. Like I think the thing I come away with Bradbury is not like, oh wow, what a great move by Ryan Poles, but more like if we're mad about Bradbury, and I agree, like what's the alternative that you really like here? Because it wasn't going to be Linderbaum for 27. Like, is it Biotish at 10? Like, is Biotish that much better than Bradbury at 5.7? Is he twice as good? Like, not really. So, or like the Cade Mays goes from the Panthers to the Lions on a fairly friendly deal, but like it just kind of feels like we're splitting hairs between mediocre centers here. So you had to give a 5th round pick, I guess, but this is cheaper than any other options, and that salary cap space is going elsewhere to get Coby Bryant, to get Devin Busch. Like you have to sacrifice a little bit at center to gain a little bit more elsewhere on the roster.
Yeah, and I also think, it's not like the Patriots were in a situation where they drafted a center last year, obviously, in Jared Wilson, and that was a guy. A lot of people were super high on Wilson coming out of into the draft and out of the draft, and so they kind of had their backup plan already. So they had the flexibility to be able to say, like, sure, give us a 5th round pick, because they were probably already planning on having that be a full on battle during camp, anyways. So it made that trade for the Bears probably even a little bit easier. And so that's, to your point, Lauren, that's what you potentially could be getting if you draft a center and you have a guy where, oh no, you have Bradbury as your backup. That's not a bad situation to be in going into this next season.
All right, one more signing the Bears made today, and another re-signing as well. Plus, we'll discuss the fact that the Bears did not get any comp picks from the NFL for Ian Cunningham. We'll discuss that next here on the Bears Squad Show. Today's episode of the Bear Squad Show is brought to you by Indeed. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill is still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. Indeed sponsored jobs help you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for: skills, experience, location. So you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. All right, Neville Gallimore is the next guy we'll talk about here. Defensive tackle, brought in, affordable contract, Lauren, but it starts to add into the defensive tackle mix and rebuilding this defense in a way. So your thoughts on this move that Ryan Poles made today?
Yeah, not a big splashy move by any means. $6 million a year for a backup defensive tackle still feels a little rich for me, especially someone like him that he's been fine, but not anything like super special, not like a huge home run upside, but definitely coming off maybe his best season of his career in Indianapolis, had 3.5 sacks, some good pressure there. But this to me is just speed, energy, motor coming off the bench at free technique pass rusher. Like he's disruptive. Like it's not necessarily like dynamic playmaking, but he just makes a mess in there a little bit that can then make everyone else's job a little bit easier there. So I think defensive tackle was a spot in free agency that was rather thin in terms of like talent and depth of talent that you can add to your roster, and they just need to get bodies at that position. So I understand them being aggressive and maybe slightly overpaying, but if I'm overpaying at $6 million a year, that's a lot better than if I'm overpaying at 25 or 23, whatever John Franklin Myers got from the Titans was like a huge contract that also feels like a bit of an overpay, even though he's a much better player. So I get that Ryan Poles is in a tough spot, and I didn't think we were going to see a huge splash defensive lineman anyway. So sure, this is someone who can help out and maybe give you a little spark plug there that you didn't have before.
Yeah, I think that for this one, it kind of feels like you knew you had to do something on the interior, and it sounds like all around they're trying to add speed into positions. And so I think that seems like it's something important that Dennis Allen is probably pushing for a little bit, some of these players. And when it comes to him, look, I love Andrew Billings, but it wasn't the same last year as what it felt like the previous year. The run defense was really bad. I mean, it felt like anybody that was coming to play the Bears, especially in the first probably like 9 or 10 weeks, were having their breakout game against the Bears when it came to on the ground. And so having someone, from what I've heard, being able to, that can play decent against the run, but also has that speed to at least create, some sort of pressures there. Javon had 6 sacks last year. You had a guy that, if he can get you, I know it was 3 last year, but that was a more rotational piece at first. Then DeForest Buckner went out, so he was playing stepped into some big shoes for there. And the Colts play a pretty heavy rotation. So even when you look at, there was like 3 of their defensive tackles that kind of all rotated in the middle. And so they were all around like 50-60% snaps towards the end between the 3 of them. And so I do think that you're seeing a guy who rotationally was getting 3.5 sacks. And so maybe next to Javon Dexter and hopefully another edge rusher on the other side, then you're looking at someone who can create another 5 or 6 sacks, and then you're getting 12 in the middle. And that's kind of what you would expect from the interior. If you're not paying that top, the top dollar for a Jeffrey Simmons or something like that, you're expecting, that's probably the number that you would like to see. And so we'll see. We've seen some of these chances being taken by Ryan Poles and the Bears in previous years, and it hasn't quite worked out. So I really do hope this one does. It doesn't feel like Colts fans, one that sits in my office, he works with us, and he was like, I don't really even know who that guy is. And I was like, well, that might be a little problem.
I was going to actually ask Taylor, because like we obviously have like a little bit of a unique perspective, because you cover the Jags and I cover the Texans. And I'll be honest, I felt just like how when they signed Dio Dengbo last year, and I was like, man, I've watched the Colts and Texans play twice a year, and I was like, I'm not super familiar with this guy's game. Like, and I was like, that doesn't, especially with the Texans, their offensive line sucks. So it's like, I feel like if he's going to have a big game in the NFL, it would be against the Houston Texans. So he's not someone that like jumped off the page for me ever watching those games, and someone that was even on my radar in free agency. So this is, of all of the moves that Ryan Poles has made so far, the one I'm the most skeptical about, in terms of just being like, oh, like we'll see. Like the numbers do look okay for like what the snap share is. I'm not really sold that this is going to be like an impactful signing for the Bears.
I will say the contract details are out, and it's a $4 million cap hit this year and then 6 next year, but almost none of that's guaranteed. So it's a 1-year, $4 million deal. And then next year they could get out of it if they want, or if he plays well, they could keep him for $6 million and he would be rewarded with it. So I at least like that it's, there's some flexibility there where, okay, if you sign a backup defensive tackle for $4 million and he's not great, sure, it sucks because pass rush is still going to be a weakness then, but like, you're not crippling your franchise financially. It's not that big of a huge waste of money. Like, and there is some potential for some upside there to play a little bit better here, and maybe play more of a true three technique type of spot, as opposed to, they kick him around a nose tackle a little bit in Indianapolis, but maybe the Bears ask him to do less of that. Just use your speed, get upfield, and blitz a little bit more and put some better pass rushers around him. Can you get him some better matchups? Like, I'm not counting on him becoming some way better player, but could he be an upgrade over Billings and Chris Williams and what they had last year? Sure.
All right, and the last one we'll mention here before we get to the comp picks. I was excited when I heard this one. I didn't think, honestly, because I thought he was going to retire, maybe, but Case Keenum back, $2.2 million, so it's not a lot of money. But you keep your quarterback room intact. At least at the moment, it feels like the Tyson Bagent stuff is going to slow down dramatically. Gardner Minshew signs with the Arizona Cardinals. He's going to be the backup, apparently. It's going to be the Jacoby Brissett show, so we'll see what the Jets do, but Kyler Murray's still out there. Tua's now, he's got a home. Malik Willis is in Miami. So kind of feels like the quarterback room is set. So I was excited that Case Keenum is back. It made me jealous that being a backup quarterback or maybe even a third string quarterback is the best job on planet Earth. But Lauren, I like this move. I'm glad he's back, and whatever his role is to Caleb, it feels like it's important.
Yeah, they got to keep him under contract until JT Barrett gets hired away to be an offensive coordinator, so then they can just retire Keenum, put him in that role, and kind of just. The thing that stood out to me about it, though, was that I had read it's a 2-year, $5.5 million deal with incentives up to $8 million. What would be a number 3 quarterback? Like, it would be, hey, if you have to play, right? I mean, those are all playing time related incentives there. So I just wonder if
it's like, if you have to play 2 games, we'll give you some money.
Right.
Yeah, there's playtime bonuses. It looks like Aaron Wilson, who works down here, tweeted out some of the details that there's $1.25 million for playtime in each year. There's also playoff incentives. So I guess just like being on the roster and they make the playoffs, and he gets bumped up a little bit too. So, and there's also workout bonuses. So I guess it's, hey, just come work out with the team in the offseason and you get more money.
It just seems interesting that why even bother putting playing time incentives in there unless somebody believes there's at least a chance that he could be the number 2 quarterback at some point. Like, I think the Bears are preparing for the possibility. I don't think Tyson Bagent's going to get traded today or even in the month of March necessarily. But if they go through the preseason and Bagent has a really strong preseason and then some team's starting quarterback gets hurt in August and they're like, oh crap, we need a QB. That to me, like a trade deadline or early season type of deal, feels like maybe what they're preparing for the possibility of, hey, Keenum might have to be number 2 QB here as well, so we can work something in there to help keep him happy as well.
Yeah, it does feel like, I mean, and we saw that the Tyson Bagent stuff heating up, and then we saw the Bears put a really high price tag from what it sounded like on Tyson Bagent. And so to your point, Lauren, if that bleeds into that kind of mindset bleeds into camp and someone does get hurt, the value for Bagent, I think, is even higher at that point, because then you're talking to teams who absolutely need a quarterback and that value goes up and you have your backup plan with the Case Keenum, someone who's now comfortable in the system and with Caleb and everything. And I think that a lot of the conversations we saw during this last season was how important he was in that room. And I think that sometimes is undervalued when it comes to certain things. I posted the clip today of the one of him sitting down talking to Caleb, and he's like, look, they're going to make a stop here and you're going to win this thing. Like, this is what you're going to do. You're dealing right now. And that's the perfect type of guy to have in your locker room. And I do feel like Caleb needs that in a sense, because Caleb is a little bit of emotional roller coaster at times, and you can see it in all of his reactions on the sideline. And to have somebody that's like, yo, you got this, relax, calm down. I think that's the perfect thing that Caleb can have around him. And so, yeah, it is interesting to have those, the third string incentives. I mean, maybe it's more so like, if we're like, really, you're, someone, you hope nobody gets hurt, but you're really deep into some games, you throw Case Keenum in there just to give him his extra $1 million late in the season if you're blowing out a team or something. But you would think that'd be Bagent. So I don't know. They have something in mind, it feels like, or they're maybe still getting phone calls. Maybe people are still calling, asking about Tyson, and so they feel like they need to lock up a plan just in case.
Yeah, I mean, was Case Keenum even active for a game last season? I don't
think so.
I think he was in regular clothes.
Yeah, because I think they have the emergency third QB rule, right, where you could be inactive and then still get called up. So it's just strange to me that guy goes from totally inactive every single week to, hey, here's some playing time incentives just in case.
Yeah, I think, was there one game? Did Tyson miss a game last year for the baby? And maybe Case Keenum was active that week, but even then, like, I don't think so. I think Case Keenum was inactive every single game last year, which is
because after the baby, Tyson had the baby play.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So I don't think so. I think Case Keenum was an inactive player for all 17 games last season.
His Pro Football Reference page says he hasn't been active for a game since 2023. Like,
oh my gosh.
He hasn't been active for it's crazy.
He's living the life right now, honestly.
Yeah, it's so interesting too, because I didn't really know what to expect when they signed him. His last year in Houston, he was on the roster, but he had gotten hurt and he wasn't with the team. So like, he wasn't they gave him the money to basically take care of him, kind of a local legend down here in Houston. But then he wasn't with the team every single week. So I assumed like that meant he was going to retire, and then he signs with the Bears, and now he signed another 2-year deal. So I think you're right. Lauren. Just they're waiting until JT Barrett gets a job, and then he'll transition into the OC role. I mean, the quarterback coach role.
I'm good with it.
He was going to retire, and the Bears came calling and said, "Hey, listen, you helped Garrett so much in his career, early in his career. Why don't you come here and do the same thing?" And he's like, "Well, am I going to have to play?" And they're like, "Yeah, don't worry about it. You'll be fine."
And last thing we'll hit on here, the other news of the day before we look ahead to what's next for the Bears, is the compensatory picks were put out today, and the Bears were not on the list. So the NFL, I guess they heard the Bears pleading. They heard Ian Cunningham and Matt Ryan talk about their roles with the Atlanta Falcons, and they said, nope, we're not doing that. The Bears are not getting a compensatory pick because it falls outside the guidelines of what the Rooney rules are. I'm a little surprised. I thought the Bears were going to end up getting them because of based on what those Cunningham and Poles comments were. And not that the Falcons were giving picks up to the Bears, but it does feel like a loophole has now been created here in a weird way that NFL teams, if they wanted to circumvent them, that they could. But Lauren, I'm just surprised. I thought the Bears were going to get them.
I was skeptical that the Bears actually would get them, but still it feels wrong, right? I mean, like, it's such a technicality type of getting off and not giving them. Like, I hope at the very least it prompts real discussion and changes in the NFL to say, okay, something about this isn't working. Because you're right, like teams are going to find ways to try and skirt around this, even if it's like it wouldn't hurt the Falcons at all, I guess, directly if the Bears got third round picks, but it's still a team that's not you is getting helped by me making this decision. Well, I'm going to do whatever I can to not help you there. So they need to find some ways to change this, but it kind of sounded like from the get-go, the NFL, it wasn't like there was a formal appeals process. Right? The Bears never used the word appeal. Ryan Poles just said, we've had communication with the league office about it. I think that communication was a giant no, sorry, bud, you're screwed.
Yeah, that's the problem. The NFL came out right away and was like, Bears can't appeal this. And the moment they said that, it kind of felt like the Bears were locked into this. And like, you can try and fight it. And obviously, Lauren, you were at the combine and everything I was hearing out of the combine where there was a lot of talk about it and how the Bears were having those conversations. I mean, then you were hearing from the Falcons side of things of, they were almost saying like the Bears should get these picks in a sense of like, without saying that, it felt like that's the route that they were going. And so I do think the NFL is going to have to reevaluate this because this is a massive loophole that now has been kind of shown. And we're seeing more and more teams start to have these type of roles like Matt Ryan was hired for. And so now you need to readjust because that wasn't really a popular thing for a while. And now you're seeing a lot of teams, the Jags did it with the Tony Baselli. We're talking about Matt Ryan having it. And so I think more and more teams are going to have that. And so if that's the case, then you're going to have the situation more and more. And the moment that you start seeing influx and a certain thing happening in the NFL is when you have to kind of refocus what the original rule was. And so I do think that we'll probably see a reevaluation of what this is. The crappy part is in 2 years, they'll be like, oh, we're changing this and that's not going to happen. And we're going to look back and be like, okay, well, can we have our picks now? And it's not going to happen. So it sucks for the Bears, but hopefully it's like a turning point for the NFL in general and how, because it's honestly, if it wasn't the Bears, it's a crappy rule for whoever this happened to, because it's not really, it wasn't well thought out. And they didn't really think of this thoroughly when it comes to the roles of those two guys, Ian Cunningham and Matt Ryan in that building.
Well, and the Bears hired a white guy to replace Ian Cunningham. So they're not even going to get picks if that guy gets hired. Either way, it's just, the cycle has been broken.
Yeah. I don't like the rule in general. Like, I think it misses the mark on what it is, like what the rule is supposed to do. Like, I don't quite understand why there are picks for certain positions and not like why wouldn't you get rewarded for JT Barrett when he gets an OC job? Like what's the difference? You're getting promoted, you're developing coaches, just it's only for head coaches. It's only for certain GM titles. It's a weird thing the NFL is doing, but yep, just the Bears, no comp picks for that one. All right, we'll take our last break here. What's next for the Bears is legal tampering period day one is really slowed down. So what's the next thing for the Bears? We'll get to that here on the Bears Squad Show. Well, speaking of the Atlanta Falcons, Ian Cunningham likes Olamide Zaccheaus because that's like the first move that he made, or him and Matt Ryan made for the Atlanta Falcons. So that's one guy of, are the Bears going to, who's the third wide receiver going to be? DJ Moore, obviously traded to the Buffalo Bills for a second round pick. Zaccheaus now with the Atlanta Falcons. Lauren, is that the next kind of move that's on your radar? Is just what's the third wide receiver, or I guess probably after safety, I would guess. Is it safety and then wide receiver?
Yeah, no, safety has to be the next big move there, but or the next big priority there, I should say. But I do suspect that the second safety spot is going to be a slower play here, right? Like he gets out in front, gets Coby Bryant, gets him to the 3-year, $40 million deal. And you'll notice like an hour later, who signed the Chiefs safety to it was 3 years, $40.25 million. Mm-hmm. Like they saw the deal the Bears gave. I'm like, well, no, I got to get a little bit more than that. I think this is the Commanders signed him.
Was it the Rams?
Like, say that again?
The Rams, right? Because they got both they got McDuffie and then signed another one today.
Maybe, and nonetheless, not super important. But like the next safety that went after Coby Bryant got a little bit more. So I think now Ryan Poles is going to look and say, okay, I spent my money there. Now let's see, maybe it's Byard or see who comes cheap at the safety position, because there's a bunch of safeties actually still out there. There's only been a few of the top free agent safeties that have signed. So I think eventually this market's going to slow down a little bit, and then price tags come down a little bit. And then that's when you'll see him get his more affordable, like Garrett Bradbury, Braxton Jones style of signing next to him, where it's a starting caliber player, but you can go in the draft and also get a player who can compete to start, and you'll be okay if you don't draft a player, but you really would prefer to draft a player at that spot to kind of fill that hole. So I expect that's going to be next, and then wide receiver. And then, yeah, I think everything else, I mean, maybe number 2 cornerback, but everything else is at least like stabilized. There's more depth players to re-sign and other spots to fill, but as far as like the big holes, I think that's really the top of the list.
Yeah, I mean, safety is the big one, especially considering it. The feeling is no Brisker or Byard coming back. It seems like that's the direction they're going. And if that's the case, then you have two big pair of shoes to fill. And yes, you took Coby Bryant and are filling one of those, but I don't think it's obviously going to be the money. You just don't have the money to be able to go out and do what, the Tennessee Titans or the Raiders are doing right now in the sense of spending. So it looks a little bit different in that sense, but I think the safety is really important, obviously. And then it will be interesting when it comes to wide receiver, because obviously DJ Moore leaving, and then you have the confidence, I believe, in with Luther Burden and Rome. And then obviously they were using Jahdae Walker later in the season too, especially, in the end zone and that touchdown against the Packers. And so you still would like somebody else there. I would personally like a veteran guy there. I don't know what that looks like or who exactly that looks like. There's a long list of wide receivers and some on the, the older veteran where maybe you can just get him for a year to come in and just try and help that group as much as possible. I wouldn't be surprised if they did something like that and then maybe address wide receiver a little bit later in the draft. But that one will be fascinating to see how much confidence they have in that room with Luther, Rome, and Jahdae right now. So outside of that, and then obviously you have two tight ends that you're using too. So you're throwing those pass catchers in there. And does that reduce what they feel like is the importance of getting another pass catcher right now in free agency? And so it'll be interesting to see that, I think.
Yeah, I think it's safety, it's wide receiver, and then number 2 corner is interesting. One name I was surprised, honestly, because I thought Nahshon Wright might fly off the board on day one. His market to me is fascinating. It's just, what do teams believe in from him? Is the turnovers lead to a big contract, or does he have to kind of wait things out? And we saw McDuffie traded to the Chiefs. It was Jalen Watson, the other corner, signed with the Chiefs. So the Rams just took their secondary. So it's Nahshon Wright. Is he the next domino to fall, or is he still factor into the Bears? I think is the other one, because it's cornerback 2 is an interesting spot, Lauren, that you bring it up, because I feel like it's okay, but I don't know if Tyreek Stevenson's kind of their guy, or if they're going to look to find something else there as an option.
And his contract's next year, right? Over after next year?
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated by it because they went through last offseason not prioritizing that spot at all. And they said, we got Terrell Smith, Tyreek Stevenson. They signed Nahshon Wright to basically a veteran minimum contract, and then drafted Zay Frazier in the 5th round. And now it's all the same players minus Nahshon Wright. So do they just sign this year's version of Nahshon Wright, like another veteran minimum player, and say, no, we'll trust that same competition again that we saw last season? Or did they see last season and go, maybe we should have probably we got lucky with Nahshon Wright, but probably should have put more on those other guys, because when Jalen Johnson was hurt, there wasn't anything we were super happy about over there. So Terrell Smith was hurt and Zay Frazier was gone too. So nonetheless, I don't expect any kind of major money put in there. But, I think there's a number of veterans out there with some connections to this coaching staff that, if whoever's the cheap one out of that group, if Marshawn Lattimore is super cheap right now, or if Trayvon Diggs is super cheap right now, like somebody ought to put him on the Dennis Allen, Al Harris rehabilitation tour of just like come to Chicago, start for a year, play big like Nahshon Wright, and then cash in again next offseason. It just feels to me like something they're going to wait and see. But there was one free agent cornerback they were tied to that signed elsewhere, and I had bookmarked the tweet, and I just now remembered it, so I'm going to scroll quickly while I'm talking here. Josina Anderson said the Bears were one of the teams that expressed interest in Steelers cornerback James Pierre. I know he signed somewhere else for some decent money, so presuming that is true, maybe they are looking at cornerbacks that, or at least checking in on cornerbacks to see how much they might cost, but clearly they weren't going to get in a bidding war for anybody at this stage.
So then I got from a big picture NFL perspective, just as we wrap up here, was there anything, Lauren, today that just you're like, whoa, like that's a lot of money, or shocking, location of where a player signed that stood out to you today?
Yeah, it's the Linderbaum thing. And I will say real quickly, James Pierce signed with the Steelers cornerback, James Pierce, I mentioned, signed with the Vikings for $4.25 million per year. So nothing crazy expensive the Bears are looking at. But nonetheless, Linderbaum, reset the center market and just, I think, ruined the rest of center free agency and made Ryan Poles look smarter for the Garrett Bradbury deal. And then beyond that, I think Jonathan Franklin Myers from the Broncos getting
that's a big one.
Huge money from the Tennessee Titans, kind of stood out to me there too. Like Poles came in and got Neville, or got Gallimore, Neville Gallimore cheap or cheap comparatively early on. Just said, I'm going to get my cheap value guy here, get out, and then watch the spending go there and edge, right? We've seen a ton of money spent on defensive line, and Ryan Poles has been perfectly happy to say, nah, I'm not going to get in those bidding wars. I'll pay a little at safety, I'll pay even a little at linebacker, but not top of the market for either of those guys. And I think from here, it's going to be a little more bargain bin shopping.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, and you can't really blame them in the sense of they had the money, but the Raiders in general, I mean, you talk about Linderbaum, I feel like they had Quay Walker. I feel like they had Nakobe Dean, it was like Quiddy Pay, Quay Walker, Nakobe Dean, like all
like
of those
within
guys.
minutes.
Yeah, it was just like bam, bam, bam. Some of those I do feel like high amounts, but it's a situation where if you have the money, why not? That's kind of what free agency is. And especially if you're a team that is kind of up in the air and you're figuring things out, you usually are overpaying for some of these free agents. But I'm sure some of these guys are looking like, okay, well, I could go here, I could get paid. They're going to get this rookie quarterback, I'm pretty sure. And, they have Brock Bowers and they have Ashton Genty. And so there's like building blocks there. So I could see a little bit of the appeal when it comes to it. But there were some of those contracts they were throwing out today that I was like, whew, they just keep paying these guys. Alec Pierce, I feel like that was a lot of money for Alec Pierce. That was another one where I was like, whoa.
And Wan'Dale Robinson too. Holy crap. Like,
who
1,000-yard season gets like DJ Moore money. Like, like I guess Alec Pierce was a little more than DJ Moore. Wan'Dale Moore was a little less, but like some of these contracts, like if I'm Buffalo, I'm feeling really good about having traded for DJ Moore because compared to some of these numbers that are out there.
Yeah, I mean, Malik Willis shocked me. Like more just the team, just like I get you have a Packers GM, a Packers head coach, or a defensive coordinator becomes the head coach, but like you're $98 million in dead cap space because of Tua, who then signs with the Atlanta Falcons, and then you also give $45 million guaranteed to Malik Willis, and I'm like, they run the Shanahan system down there. Like, unless Bobby Slowick is going to run something he's never run before and surprise us, I was like, that's an interesting fit for him. I mean, I definitely think we're on Kyler Murray to the Vikings watch now at this point. You don't like that.
Or a trade for Anthony Richardson.
Oh, gosh.
I would much rather they trade for Anthony Richardson or sign Kirk Cousins than Kyler Murray. I would be scared of Kyler Murray in Kevin O'Connell's offense. If anybody's going to resurrect Kyler Murray's career, it's him in Minnesota, and I don't want to be on the receiving end of that for 2 games, especially because Kyler Murray's going to be a veteran minimum contract because he's getting all the money from Arizona. So you get a quality starting quarterback with a bunch of upside, and you don't have to pay him that. So the Vikings could still put a bunch of people around him. Like, that's be one thing if they had to fork out $50 million to get Kyler Murray. Okay, they got to make a bunch of cuts elsewhere, and maybe you'll be okay. But like, I hope he goes somewhere farther away from the NFC North.
Yeah, how did the Jets not try that?
The Falcons and not Kyler Murray. I don't understand it.
I feel like they chose Tua just because he's lefty. They have 2 left-handed.
Let's have 2 left-handed quarterbacks.
Injury-prone left-handed quarterbacks. Yeah, great idea.
Yeah.
Ian Cunningham. I don't know. Matt Ryan must be making all those decisions.
Yeah, I mean, because it seems like Geno's going to the Jets. It kind of feels like that's what the talk has been, that he could go back to the Jets and be the hole over there. And I'm like, I would go with Kyler Murray over Geno Smith all day, every day. Like, I know he gets hurt, and sometimes the stats drop dramatically when Call of Duty comes out, but I would still take the flyer on Kyler Murray versus the ghost of Geno Smith at this point. But
how would you feel about Kirk back to Minnesota?
At this point, like Kirk, I think, he's an upgrade over JJ McCarthy, but like he's so old and so slow that I do like the idea of this pass rush having more success trying to disrupt him than certainly Kyler Murray as an athletic quarterback. But even McCarthy was a little slippery at times last season when the Bears were trying to get pressure on him. So, but like Cousins is very statuesque at this point. Like, yeah, he would be an upgrade and do some damage with his arm for sure, but like it doesn't scare me a ton, and also doesn't have the long-term implications. Like Kyler Murray could come there, have a good year, sign an extension, and be there for 3 or 4 years and be a good quarterback for a long time. Kirk Cousins is a bridge to whatever their next young QB is going to be, so I would much prefer that. Yeah,
the only other thing that stood out for me is, and I know this applies to Taylor as well as Notre Dame fans, Jeremiah Love is going to the top 7 because with ETN going to the Saints and Kenneth Walker going to the Chiefs, I feel like that means
it's going to go to Tennessee.
They knew he wasn't getting there. Like, I think the floor is probably the Commanders at 7, but I feel like he's going to Tennessee.
I do too, and I hate that. I hate it.
I guess really quickly here, just one thing we forgot. Just, would either of you rather seen Dominique Robinson be back with the Bears for $4 million as he signs with the Texans, or Lauren, are you okay if he walks for that?
Yeah, I mean, for $4 million, good for him. Like I thought they might try and bring him back. I don't want to say I believe in Dominic Robinson, but like if there's a player that even at this stage of his career could still have more in there, it's him, because he switched to defensive end like 2 years into his college career. Like he's just still new at the position, and so like I don't think he's gonna come back and have some big year, but like I do worry that 2 or 3 years on the line, you're gonna look at him and go, oh man, like not that the Bears gave up on him too early because they gave him 4 years, but just like I knew there was something a little bit more in there than what the Bears actually got from him. Like I think about like Kyrus Tonga, the nose tackle of the Bears after the 7th round, who's gone on to be a fine NFL player, nothing special, but just a better player elsewhere than he was in Chicago. Not that the Bears should have held on to him because he hadn't shown you anything, but you just wonder if there's more there if you had the timing and the money and the patience to keep working on it.
Yeah, Kyrus Tonga got another contract today too. And so, yeah, I agree. Like I feel like Dom Rob's one of the guys where like I wanted so badly to work out, but I do feel like it felt like it ran its course. But it was one of those situations where if in a year we're having this conversation and Dom Rob's coming off a 10-sack season, I wouldn't be surprised. But then if you were telling me he only started 3 games, I wouldn't be surprised. So it's kind of at that level for me where I don't quite know where his trajectory is going or where his future is, but you saw flashes there. There's something in there. You just were never fully able to pull it out of him. And then injuries were kind of mixed into there. And so that didn't help either with the development side of things.
Yeah, I was trying to sell people on him here in Houston. I was like, hey, this is a good move. Like, you're arguably the best pass rushing duo in the NFL. He's going to just be a rotational guy to spell Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter on occasion. So this is a fine move for the Texans. I mean, $4 million, like I would have liked a little cheaper, but it's alas, you're not going to bring everyone back. But that will do it for this episode of the Bear Squad Show. We'll be back Friday for another show as we'll continue to see more Bears moves. The season will officially start, so maybe see some trades and things like that go through in the next couple of days. So that will do it for this episode. Make sure you check out Lauren every single day on the Locked On Bears show here on YouTube and all the audio platforms. We'll talk to you on Friday. Our crew, peace.